Pillman joins the Hart Foundation and the Anvil comes back. And then we have to talk about the cat fight backstage. Jim Cornette tells this famous story that after the fight, he grabbed the clump of hair that you pulled out of Sean's head and kept it, but then he divorced that wife, so it might be on eBay one day and it might be legit. So what happened that day? What led to that fight? And do you remember the kind of pieces involved?
That was all related to the Sunny Days remark, which I didn't even, like, I went in the ring. It was after they had a pay-per-view in Texas, San Antonio, with Sean wrestling Sid, maybe in a rematch or something like that. And then we had the TV tapings the next day, and Sean was all pilled. He took a bunch of pills and was all like, Sean had a serious drug problem at the time, which I think he's addressed now. But in those days, Sean was even that night in the dressing room he was all messed up on pills and stuff and shouldn't have been allowed to work anyway or do anything. He could barely carry on a conversation with anybody. But we were already in the ring and the crowd was quite loud, and they, of course, were very pro-American and very anti-Hart Foundation. So it was really loud and I couldn't really hear much. And sometimes you can't hear in the center of the ring because it's coming from all directions, the sound. And when Sean or Triple H said something about the Sunny Days, I didn't really get it, and I wasn't sure what they said, like whether it was sunny days or muddy days or what it was. But I didn't understand it, but anyway, I just kind of, I no-sold it. And because I'll be honest, there was nothing ever going on with me and Sonny.
Because that was around the same time where you were doing a promo in the wheelchair, and you're just shouting stuff at Sean, but the idea was that he was going to super kick you before he went off the air. But then, But then it went off the air, so they went off there with you.
That was my fault. I talked too long, but it was. The truth is, and I owned up to that. But the truth is, it really got so loud in the ring that I couldn't hear them give me the cue, because they were yelling so loud and it got so heated. I remember I just kept talking, and I kept kind of waiting for the cue, and I missed the cue, and I kept talking, and we went off the air, and Sean didn't get to kick me. And that was supposed to be the end of the show, with Sean giving me the super kick in the wheelchair. And I remember I came back, I said I couldn't hear the cue. I mistimed it, and we went off the air by only about 30 seconds or 20 seconds after he kicked me. But Sean thought I did it on purpose, like he kind of thought everything. That's kind of, in truth, I think Sean had a lot of reasons to doubt me, because he probably thought I did that on purpose, and I didn't. And I thought a lot of the stuff that he did was on purpose, and it was. And but you know, I was trying my hardest to actually draw money with Sean. You know, that was my whole plan. Was when I came back, I wanted to draw money with Sean. And that was, you know, like I know I went strong on a lot of my promos when I took, like when Sean posed for the Playgirl magazine. And I remember I asked him, I said, can I talk about you? You know, do you have a problem with that? And he's like, no, I don't have a problem with it. Just have at her and do whatever you want to say. And so, of course, I would go out and talk about him posing for Playgirl, and that he's not a role model, and everything I said. Just when I came back to the dressing room, Sean was so hurt and crushed by everything I said that it was like, you know, I could tell it really hurt him and really put him in a bad way. And it was, when I think back of it, I overdid it sometimes by you know, poking him in the eye when I kind of knew it would. But at the same time, I was just trying to draw money with him. And I always said to him, I said, like, it's your character. I'm not attacking Sean Hickenbottom. I'm attacking Shawn Michaels, the wrestling character. And so I'm not talking about personal stuff. I'm just talking about, which you did. You posed for Playgirl magazine. So, you know, I try to find real things that I could use to kind of make me look like I was trying to be a bad guy, but in a very babyface heel way. But Sean was just, when I would sort of zing him in the ring, I remember when I come back, he'd be ready to burst into tears. And, that's what started. So somewhere in there, the sunny day remark happened. And, I didn't pay any attention to it until the next day I went home. And I remember all my kids who were in school at the time, I remember they came home from school. The first thing they asked me, I remember my son Dallas asking me with kind of a big smile on his face if I was getting it on with Sonny kind of thing. And I was like, and it bothered me. I was like, no, I can already, everyone at school was talking about me and Sonny, and so it really bugged me. And then my wife, of course, was not too happy about that. And then when I went up to my dad's house, the first thing my dad asked me is, "You got something going on with Sonny?" And so that's why I said to myself, it's like, no, he's crossed a big line this time, because he's not talking about my character. He's talking about the real Bret Hart and my family. It's affecting my family life. So I made up my mind that moment is that as soon as I saw Sean, I was going to beat the crap out of him. And then I thought about it, and he was wrestling if I'm not mistaken, he was going to wrestle Sean. He was going to wrestle Steve Austin at the King of the Ring.
Yeah.
And I went overseas to South Africa and Bahrain, I think it was, or somewhere one of those Arab countries, or an island, or it might have been Dubai or somewhere. I think it was Bahrain. And I was still a baby face, which is kind of funny because I remember Canadian flags everywhere, and it was like, if they were trying to kill me off when they turned me heel, it didn't work because I was still babyface in South Africa and Bahrain and still in England. And I wrestling Undertaker, and I sidestepped him in a wrestling match where I just stepped out of the way to move from a tie-up. And I knew I tore something in my knee. It didn't seem like a big tear or a big injury. I remember I could limp through my match, finished the match, came home, went to my knee surgeon, and he said, "You tore your ligament or your whatever was left of my knee from my previous injuries." And he said, you got to have surgery. And Vince had called me and said, at that time, he said, "It's you and Sean at the King of the Ring. And the finish is you're going over," which was like, I remember it was like, maybe I can tape it up. But yeah. But, I was, the truth is that I was always a professional. And I told Vince that I didn't think, especially with the tension between me and Sean, that I could give him the match that he wanted, or I could trust Sean in the ring to work with him that way. So he switched the card and took me out of it and put, I think it was Steve and Sean ended up working. But I decided that I was going to get Sean for what he said about the sunny days. But I thought, he's the main event in a pay-per-view for Vince and the whole company. So I could get myself a lot of heat with the office if I get into a fight with Sean a day before the pay-per-view, or, say I hurt Sean really bad, say I almost killed him. I would say we got into a bad fight, and whatever happened in the fight, and if he was hurt really bad, Vince would be furious at me for costing him a lot of money, and it's a business thing, and it's like, I could really affect or do a harm to the business if I took that kind of action. So I said, I can't do anything to Sean until after he wrestles Steve Austin. And then it's fair dinkum. Like, I can confront him about what he said, and then we could settle our differences kind of thing. So I made up my mind that I wasn't going to say anything to Sean. I didn't talk to him. We didn't say hi to each other. We totally ignored each other for about a month after the sunny days remark, or maybe it was a couple of months. But I waited till that pay-per-view was over. And then when it was over, I remember the next day I was waiting for Sean at the building. And I said, I'm going to get him as soon as I see him. And he showed up late. He didn't come to the building that day on time. They always talk about Bret Hart being late for everything. Sean was late. And so I kept waiting for him to come. And I remember like when Jim Neidhart, who was just came back to the company after being fired for throwing a TV monitor at Vince McMahon or something like that. He shot put at a TV monitor at somebody in the office. Actually, I don't think it was Vince. It was actually Chief Jay Strongbow. But he threw it about 30 feet, and Chief Jay just ducked like this, and it hit some cameraman or somebody behind him. And then they fired Jim. That was a couple of years before. And so Jim had just got his job back. And I remember I said, as soon as I see Sean, I'm going to beat the crap out of him. And Jim's like, please don't do it. Please, I just got hired back. Don't screw everything up for me right away. I just got here. Please, please. And he was right too. I remember thinking about it, and I said, you're right. Probably the better thing to do is I'll let Sean will say something to me again another time, and we'll deal with it then. But you're right. You're probably going to cost you your job and probably cause a lot of problems once I beat him up. So I changed my mind. I completely switched gears, and suddenly I was like more relaxed because I knew I was going to fight Sean. He was getting pretty tensed up and ready to confront somebody like that. And so Sean came to the building. He was walking around pretty briskly, and, like pretty, cocky-like, and walked right past me and went in the bathroom. And I was actually in the bathroom when he came in. I was in the mirror. I had to go do my ring promos across the hall when Pillman, Jim, Davey, and Owen were all waiting for me. I just had to wet my hair down. So I went to the dressing room across the hallway to wash my hair down with a little water and get all slicked up for my promo. And Sean, when Sean walked in the bathroom behind me, he walked right past me and went into one of the bathroom stalls. And I was wetting my hair down and combing it, and I said, hey, Sean. And I said something kind of like friendly to him. And then he just stepped out of the dressing room and he goes, why would I talk to you after you haven't said a word to me in a month or something like that? And he cut a big promo on me, and he walked out past me in the dressing room. And I had a hairbrush in my, and a hair gel in my hand. I remember he already walked out past me, and I was really surprised. I remember that kind of put me back on the whole fighting mode. Now I'm going to fight him again. And so I immediately, as soon as he walked out of the bathroom, I remember Crush, Brian Adams, was one of the guys that heard what he said to me. And he said to me, he goes, I can't believe he just said that to you. And I walked past Crush, and I walked up and grabbed Sean. And this is our big cat fight as best I can remember it. And certainly was not my greatest fight. But the truth is, I just had knee surgery, and I was supposed to be out for 6 months. But I did get my knee scoped, so it's a smaller surgery. But I was still limping and couldn't really wrestle very well or be physically active yet because it was only about 2 weeks after surgery. So I just walked up to Sean, and I remember I just pushed him right against the wall, and then he stood up, and so I just grabbed Sean by the hair, right here and right here, right by the bull horns. And then I thought I was in the Olympics, and I was doing like a hammer throw. I think Sean's feet were actually off the ground, and I was just spinning around. That was our fight. And Jerry Lawler and Pat Patterson were right there, and they just jumped in and jumped on top of both of us. And from there, it was just a pull apart with Sean pulling trying to pull a bunch of my hair out. Thankfully, I had lots to work with. Sean, unfortunately, didn't have that much to work with, and most of his hair was like a tumbleweed. It was like a big giant tumbleweed, and I've had more people talk to me about that clump of hair that Sean left behind. But anyway, they pulled us apart. There was a bunch of wrestlers. I remember Jerry Lawler or Pat Patterson pleading with Davey Boy to help Davey couldn't have walked over slower to help break up that fight. And that was really all it was. And then Sean stood up and cut a big promo on everybody and told Vince that it was an unsafe work environment, and he stormed out of the building. And I remember Vince told me that night, he goes, I should have stepped in sooner, that I knew this was going to happen, and I take responsibility for it. And I don't blame you, I blame myself. And I said, well, it was all about the sunny days with Mark and all that. And we went back and forth. Because I asked Sean, that was what I said to him. I said, why would you say something so that would be hurtful to my family? And he never did answer that question. And it's funny, I don't want to say anything to add on to all that, but it turned out, if you listen to Sonny's side of things, the only one she was seeing was Shawn Michaels. And so I was always felt I was right, but I felt bad that we, wasn't professional. And so does that answer the question?
Yeah. So